chair will call the meeting to order with a roll call vote. I guess I'll do that. Kate?
Aye, here.
Ellen?
Here.
Josh?
Here.
Phil? Phil, are you here?
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can.
Now I can. Okay, my buds weren't all the way in. Yes, I'm here.
Okay. All right, thank you. All meetings are video recorded by Westwood Media Center. If anyone else wishes to record the meeting, please identify yourself by raising your hand. This meeting is filmed live by Westwood Media Centers on their YouTube channel, local government channels, Comcast Channel 12 and Verizon Channel 42. As a friendly reminder, please turn off your cell phone ringers and remain on mute while not speaking to assist with clear audio. The meeting will be civil and all people treated respectfully. The format of the meeting will be the chair will announce the agenda item, an applicant will introduce themselves and team members. The applicant will present to the board. The board will proceed to staff comments and the board will discuss and may ask questions of the applicant. The chair will then seek public comments. For public hearings, the public will be given an opportunity to comment and ask questions by asking participants to raise their hand in the Zoom and waiting to be unmuted. In Zoom, you may use the raise hand feature or by pressing *9 if dialing in by phone. Or you may put a question in the Q&A that the chair will read. Items that are not a public hearing, the opportunity for public participation will be at the discretion of the board, and it is recommended to place your question in the Q&A for the chair to consider. When it is time for the public comment period, the chair will ask everyone to please identify yourself by stating your name and address. Please direct all comments and questions through the chair. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. All people will be given the opportunity to speak or ask questions for public hearing items. But in the interest of time and fairness, personal, repetitive, or off-topic comments may be cut short. In the event of a disruption, the chair will mute the individual and a warning will be given. If disruption occurs again, the individual will be removed from the meeting. We've done roll call vote. Nora, any changes to our, Elijah, any changes to our agenda?
Let's see, we do not have any changes to the agenda.
Okay, then can you help us with what is first on our agenda?
Yes, so the first item is the annual reorganization of the planning board, election of the chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Okay, Nora, any other things to add to this procedure?
So for this section, I just want to begin by thanking Chris for his past year, in fact, 2 years in a row of service as the chair. So thank you very much for that. And we will invite any board member who wants to nominate someone to be the chair for the coming year.
So I would like to echo the gratitude that Nora has expressed. Chris, it's been wonderful to serve on the board while you've been chair. But going forward, I'm wondering if Ellen, Ms. Rollins, would consider being chair.
So that's a nomination for Ellen. Ellen, would you accept that nomination?
I will. Thank you.
And are there any other members who want to make a different nomination?
Is a second needed, Nora, in this situation?
So usually what we do is we get all the nominations on the table and then go from there. But seeing no one, I think that's a motion from Kate to nominate Ellen as the chair for the year going forward. So now we do need a second.
A second.
Thank you. And Chris, can you take a roll call vote?
All right, we'll take a roll call vote for Ellen Rawlings as the next chair of the planning board. Josh.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Ellen.
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ellen.
Congrats.
Congratulations,
Thank you very
Ellen.
much.
Very nice.
Thank you very much, all of you. And I'd also just like to take a second to thank Chris for his outstanding leadership these last 2 years. I will be doing my best to follow your lead. So thank you.
Thank you.
I echo the same.
Great. So now we'll move on to
Nora, before we move on to that, I just wanted to I feel I would be remiss if I didn't just make this one statement. I'd like everyone on the board present today in our meeting to understand Ellen becoming chair was not predicated on her being vice chair for the past year. It is, as I understand, as long as I've been on the board for the last 11 or 12 years, the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary are all one-year positions, and they have no bearing on the following year. Everyone is voted in based on the merits as deemed by the board. So I just would like everyone to understand that in no way is Ellen's ascension to chair predicated on having been vice chair. It is not taking turns. It's that the board feels Ellen is qualified for this position. So I wanted to make that point clear.
And if I may, Chris, sorry, before we leave that subject, I didn't even realize Ellen was vice chair. That's more about me and my attention to detail than you guys need to know. But
wait, were you secretary?
I know that for sure. I knew you were chair and I'm secretary, but okay. I wasn't sure who the vice chair is because you've been chairing every meeting. But anyway, so you're correct. I did not nominate Ellen because she's vice chair. I nominated Ellen because I thought she would excel in this role in the year to come.
Okay.
Terrific.
Nora, I apologize for interrupting your
That's
process,
okay.
Nora.
So now the next point, we will go through just two other points of the reorganization. Ellen, you'll chair the meeting from here on, and then we'll call for nominations for vice chair and for secretary. We'll save the board and committee positions for later in the meeting. So if you're ready, if you could call for nominations for the vice chair.
Okay. Would anyone like to make nominations for the position of vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Kate if she'd be interested in. She's been doing a great job.
I'll second that.
All right, that feels like okay.
Do you accept,
very
Kate?
nice. I accept. Thank you. That's very nice.
You didn't even know Ellen was it last year.
I know.
Yeah. All right. So then, Ellen, you take your first roll call vote.
All right, I will take we have a motion and a second, so I will take a roll call vote. Ugh, Chris.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you. Congratulations, Kate. And now the next position is board secretary.
All right, I will entertain motions for board secretary. Nominations, I should say.
I'll nominate Josh.
I would second that.
You accept that, Josh?
Sure.
All right, let's take a roll call vote. My second roll call vote. Kate.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
And I vote aye. So
Aye.
it is.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all. Very nice.
Now we move to adjourn. Is that what we do?
Not yet.
So moved.
Although this will not be a 1 a.m. meeting, I'm convinced you'll actually have a relatively proper meeting tonight. So the item 2 on your agenda now is moving on. This is the continuation of a public hearing for wireless communication overlay district special permit for the major wireless communication facility of Verizon that Verizon has at 690 Canton Street. This has been continued from the April 11th meeting, where it was continued without discussion, from the March 21st, and before that, I believe the March 7th. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it was just the March 21st. So the reason that Verizon had asked you to continue a couple of times was because they were preparing a modification request. Rather than go forward with the special permit, they're interested in asking the board if they would modify the EIDR approval that you granted in September 20th of 2022. If you remember, that EIDR approval was to swap out antennas that were on existing structures on the roof of 690 Canton Street with new antennas. They were maintaining the height of those facilities though, and because they exceeded 10 feet, they would not just need the EIDR approval, they would have to either go to ZBA for a special permit or come back to you. So they went through that process. Then they decided that they would like to reduce the height of the antennas to 10 feet. So we have representatives from Verizon to come here. I will pull them over as panelists. Well, it looks like a representative, Michael Fenton, I have you here twice. Is that maybe once by video and once by phone?
Thank you very
All
much.
right. So Michael, if you'd like to explain your application for the modification.
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Attorney Michael Fenton. I'm a partner at the law offices of Schatz, Schwartz and Fenton. Our address is 1441 Main Street in Springfield, Massachusetts. We're here tonight on behalf of Silco Partnership, doing business as Verizon Wireless. And as Nora indicated, this is an amendment to an existing EIDR approval that was granted last fall. Subsequent to the granting of that approval, Verizon was instructed to proceed with a special permit application for an extension of a pre-existing non-conforming use. We've since withdrawn that application and worked with our radio frequency engineers at the town's request to reduce the antenna height from the existing heights, which are around 12 feet, to the 10-foot height, which will allow us to receive, be eligible to receive rather, full EIDR approval from this board without the need for a further special permit. So we have submitted that modification request to you, revised drawings dated May 8th, and we did receive on Friday a request for supplement to that submission from Elijah Romulus, and we uploaded that document into the portal to provide an additional view shed for the plan. There's 12 existing antennas on the rooftop. The plan is to remove and replace 9, and the remaining 3 will have modifications concerning their what's known as their radio remote radio head equipment. So that is the proposal. I believe we have some, if there are questions about it or you'd like me to share my screen and show you the drawings, we can do that. And I also believe that we may have also some representatives from the company, including radio frequency and our A&E firm, if there's any questions about those items. But on the whole, this is a benefit to the town. We're excited to bring new technology to improve data and voice coverage for residents and businesses. It's mounted on an existing commercial structure, and it will result in not just a minor visual impact, but a reduced visual impact because we are reducing the height of the antennas to 10 feet. Thank you.
Do you want to share your screen, Michael, just so they can see?
Sure. Let me do that. Okay. So this is the west elevation view showing the antenna arrays and maxing out at the 10 feet. There's also an east elevation view here. I can show you the photo simulations, which also show the existing conditions, and there's a variety of other carriers that are also on this rooftop. So it isn't that Verizon is the only carrier up there. There is already a variety of antennas that are providing coverage and a part of the overall visual impact of the facility.
Can you show the document, the supplemental elevation that shows the difference between what the board approved in September and what they're being asked to approve today? I think that one is the most illustrative.
Yes, this is the supplemental that was submitted today. If Aidan Bowmiller or Chris Hardy are a part of the webinar and can be added as participants, they're a part of the A&E firm, Dewberry Engineers, that prepared this and could speak in a more informed way about it than me as an attorney.
Aidan Bowmiller, I see. I'm sorry, who was the other person?
Chris Hardy.
Don't see Chris Hardy, but we've invited Aidan over.
Thank you.
I think this worked just now. This is Aiden Baumler speaking with Dewberry Engineers. So I can just explain a little bit further on this supplemental elevation that was provided. It's actually a comparison of what's existing to what we're currently proposing. So this actually shows the antenna arrays at their current heights that are installed on this rooftop. And the proposed east elevation shows the proposed antenna array that is lowered and just shows the dual mounted antenna setup that we had previously proposed in this situation.
And just to point out to the board members, you'll see that the antennas are moving closer to the edge of the roof.
This is
So
the
they meet
existing.
the 10-foot height limit, that they are closer to the edge of the roof.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
And is it a
sorry.
correlation? Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ellen.
No, I was actually just gonna say thank you for showing the drawings. I think it's good to have them on record and to just review them briefly, but I was gonna open it up to questions from board members.
I wanted to just ask, is it a direct correlation that the shorter antenna needs to go to more to the edge of the building? And that's the reason?
That is the reason, yes.
And Nora, has this happened with any other carriers that are up there?
I believe the other carriers, I don't know all of them, but I think the ones that were recently approved were under 10 feet already. They're all at different locations. Can you show the plan that shows the site view looking down? You can see there's equipment throughout the site. And some of them are very close. You can look down on the bottom of the screen. There's another carrier that has their facility very close to the edge.
Okay.
On the left as well.
That's correct.
I know we've heard from a number of carriers on this site. I just couldn't recall who did what. Okay, thank you.
I see, Josh, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I noticed a radio frequency report that was loaded into the document portal, but it seems like there's sort of more of a broad coverage document associated with that, more than what I'd expect for a radio frequency report that might indicate heat maps and how the site is currently operating and labeled and all that. Did you do one of those? Or
for our supplemental submission, we did not do a revised radio frequency analysis for the reduction in antenna height.
Does the one that you submitted in September still apply?
Is there anyone on the call from radio frequency for Verizon Wireless? I'm thinking Jay Latore or Thasia.
I see Juan Latore.
Yeah, could you please admit him, Nora?
Yes.
Thank you.
Since this was a modification, and the only modification was to the height and the location of the antennas and not to the nature of the antennas themselves, we didn't require resubmittal of all of the documents that the board received in September.
Good evening, this is Juan Latore, just confirming that my audio is working.
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Juan Latore, radio frequency engineer with Verizon Wireless. Business address 20 Alexander Drive, Wallingford, Connecticut. Let me see, let me get on video here. So I just want to restate the question, make sure I have this right. The question was, after the proposed revisions were provided by the A&E firm, were there any changes to the engineering necessity case, which includes Verizon's RF testimony on the need for the upgrade, as well as coverage maps? Do I have the gist of the question right, sir?
No, actually, more so, we have that documentation, it looks like, but more so the current state of the RF facilities and your projections for RF exposures to the public, the surrounding abutters, employees to the buildings, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I understand that question. Thank you, sir. Attorney Fenton, I don't have the entire application in front of me, so I need to lean on you for a second. What testimony, if any, was provided regarding Verizon's compliance with FCC regulations?
Exactly.
So we submitted the engineering necessity case. A structural, an RFDS, and I don't see any other documentation that member Ames is referring to. I'm not sure exactly which document you're referring to, Mr. Ames, but can you be specific as to what document you're referring to? I don't see a report that is consistent with what you're describing.
Usually with the radio frequency reports, it's not necessarily the necessity case, but compliance with FCC regulations. And that the installation is going to maintain compliance with that.
So I can share my screen. I have the compliance report that was shown to the board in 2022. So this report is, trying to see the date on it.
2015 assessment date.
Yes. So that was what the board received in September.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize to the board. I'm working in a public building and an individual came into the office. I needed to speak to him for a second. So again, my apologies here. So I can see your screen, Councilor Fenton, and I do see this report. So if I could just restate that this was provided to the board back in September of 2022.
It was provided in September 2022, but it was produced in June 2015. It was a post-installation compliance assessment for the previous version. Well, for the antennas that are there today. So the question was, is this valid for the new antennas, or is there another compliance assessment?
Okay, I understand your question completely. So to answer your question, this document from 2015 would not take into account the proposed modifications that Verizon is proposing as part of this application. And I would need to defer to Attorney Fenton on the most appropriate approach here. But Attorney Fenton, what I'm thinking here is it may be appropriate to ask that as a condition of approval, Verizon follow up with a radio frequency emissions report that takes into account the proposal here. And if that would be an acceptable condition, that's something we could turn around for the board in 24 hours. We have the documentation. It just needs to be prepared, to be submitted to the board.
We would be fine with that if that was acceptable to the board.
That makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. I don't see any other hands, but did any other board members have any questions or comments?
No, Chris covered mine. Chris covered mine.
Great, and Josh covered mine. So, hey, great. Nora, were there any staff comments that we should take into consideration?
Let me see. I don't think there were for the modification. I don't believe there were.
I just saw public safety saying that was a good thing from previous.
Just let me open up the review permit application for this one. Give me 1 minute. Yeah, the public safety police department said we foresee no negative public safety impact from the proposed changes to the cell antennas atop 690 Canton Street. If this new equipment does enhance cell coverage in the University Avenue area, that could have a positive public safety impact for the public to report crimes in progress or road hazards. From the Board of Health, there was no comment. And from the fire department, also no comment.
Great.
So that would be it.
Excellent. Thank you. This is a public hearing, I believe. So I guess now would be a good time to open this up for public comment. If there is any member of the public who would like to comment, feel free to raise your hand or type your comment in the Q&A. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. I'll give it another second. And procedural question, Nora, should I be addressing everything to Elijah at this point, or?
So I think we're tag teaming this meeting, so
Okay.
feel free to address it to either of us, because all of the items on the agenda for this meeting are old applications. So Elijah is moving forward with the new applications, and we're kind of both doing the old applications together.
Gotcha. I realized out of habit, I just keep turning to Nora. So no slight intended, Elijah. I'll just go back and forth. I'll trade on and off. Okay. I do not see any public comment. So would now be a good time to entertain a motion?
Yes, just 1 second. I'm adding a condition for the radio. Trying to remember what was called a radio frequency.
Blind spot.
Assessment, compliance assessment.
Compliance assessment.
And just to confirm, Michael and Juan, this would be like an in-person assessment of compliance, not just a paper assessment?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So since the construction has not yet started yet, this would be a paper or desktop analysis that assumes worst case RF emissions levels, meaning basically every radio is at full power, which is not a real world configuration, but assumes worst case scenarios. So it'll be a desktop analysis for this submission to the board.
And then following construction, you actually do a site visit to ensure that there's continued compliance with labeling and posting?
So
that
following I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
did I interrupt someone?
I was just going
Okay,
to point out that in the previous approval that there was a post installation assessment that was required, and I would recommend that the board require that in this new approval as well.
Okay, yeah. So I will answer Mr. Ames' question first. So following construction, what Verizon does is we have our general contractor that will be responsible for the installation of the radio frequency equipment, also implement any required radio frequency emissions related materials. So whether that is signage or any other, mitigation documents, we would do that. And then I apologize, Nora, I don't want to mispronounce your last name. I would say, again, directed to Attorney Fenton, that if the board made it a condition of approval, that Verizon also provide a post full site activation in-person radio frequency analysis, actual measurements to verify FCC compliance. Again, Attorney Fenton, I would say to you, that would be an appropriate condition that Verizon would be happy to comply with.
That's correct. We would agree with that.
All right, so I will show you the draft conditions that were prepared. Elijah sent these to you in your meeting report, and I have supplemented one of the conditions to reflect what was discussed tonight. So first, just to remind you, this is a request for a minor modification of an existing approval. So the first motion from the board would be to find that what's proposed is actually minor and doesn't require an independent special public hearing. So you have your public hearing open for a special permit for this facility, but you're actually right now being asked to vote to consider a modification of the previously approved EIDR approval. And if that's successful, you don't need to go forward with the special permit. So the first motion that's proposed is a motion to find the modifications to be minor in nature.
Thank
So
you. No.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I would entertain a motion on the minor modification topic.
Great. So I move that the planning board find the proposed modifications to the wireless communication overlay district environmental impact and design review WCOD EIDR approval for the Verizon wireless communications facility at 690 Canton Street to be minor in nature.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Josh,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Chris,
You're muted, Chris.
you're muted, Chris.
Sorry. Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you. So now here is a draft of the motion to grant approval of the modifications. And before you read it, I just want to point out that I added condition 3 here. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall conduct an analysis and submit a radio frequency compliance assessment for the proposed new and relocated antennas. And all the other conditions are as provided to you in Elijah's draft for your meeting packet.
I move that the planning board grant the proposed modifications to the wireless communication overlay district environmental impact and design review WCOD EIDR approval for the Verizon wireless communications facility at 690 Canton Street, as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on May 9th, 2023, without the need for a WCOD special permit, subject to the following conditions. Except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior approvals in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. Number 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires permit, license, or other approval from any board or commission, including the Westwood Conservation Commission, Westwood Zoning Board of Appeals, Westwood Select Board, or any agency of the town of Westwood, or other regulatory agency of the Commonwealth or the federal government, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with the decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 40A, subsection 9 in all applicable planning board rules and regulations. Number 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall conduct an analysis and submit a radio frequency compliance assessment for the proposed new and relocated antennas. Number 4, the visual and aesthetic impact of the antennas, mounting brackets, and any other attachments shall be minimized to the full practical extent, and all components of the wireless communication facility shall be painted and maintained in a neutral gray color acceptable to the town planner. Number 5, the applicant shall verify through a report of an independent radio engineering consultant that the new and or replaced antennas will not interfere with nor have any negative effect on the town's emergency radio communications. Number 6, all antennas, cabling, and accessory equipment shall be removed within 6 months of abandonment or discontinuance of use. The planning board shall receive notification of any abandonment or discontinuance of use. Number 7, a copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Fenton, Attorney Fenton, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just regarding the condition number 3, can the board just explain the intent here? This says prior to the issuance of a building permit. So is this referring to the desktop report that you've requested from Mr. Latore and not the in-person review? Obviously, we couldn't do the in-person review before getting a building permit.
Yes, that's the intention here, that this would be the desktop one. And then condition 5 which we can supplement if you think it's necessary. Condition 5 is the post-installation report that is always required in all of these applications. And that is intended essentially to verify that there's no interference with town emergency radio communications, but that report, when it's submitted, contains all of the radio frequency assessment, compliance assessment information as well. So if the board members would rather language added to that, we can add that.
Any board members have feelings on how we want to proceed with that?
Mr. Latour has his hand up.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Latour, if you'd like to comment.
Yes, thank you so much. If I may make a suggestion through the chair, it may be appropriate for condition number 3 that the phrase "submit a radio frequency compliance assessment" be revised to say "submit a pre-construction radio frequency compliance assessment." That I think would help clarify the condition number 3. In regards to condition number 5, I just wanted to take the opportunity to explain to Mr. Ames that the conversation that we had in regards to a what I would call a post-construction radio frequency compliance assessment would only look at the analysis to determine that Verizon's proposed or configured installation complies with all FCC regulations for general and occupation exposure limits. The note that previous number 5, current number 6 about that the antennas will not interfere nor have any negative effect on the town's emergency radio communications is a little bit different. That is what we would call an intermodulation study, which analyzes the frequency of an applicant and compares it to frequencies owned by town public safety to make sure that the two when cooperating in a given area won't interfere with one another. So I want to leave it up to the board to decide what would be most appropriate and what you feel you need to ensure we're complying with all your requirements. But I did want to make sure to Mr. Ames, through the chair, that I noted the difference between those two types of reports. And whatever the board decides would be appropriate, I still believe, working with Attorney Fenton, that we can accommodate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm looking at the changes to the conditions that Nora just made. Any comments, questions, or concerns from board members?
On 5, Nora, I would take out the word "proposed" at the very end of the sentence and say the new and relocated. Then I think it reads well. It reads correctly.
Thank you, Phil. Any other comments, questions, input on the revised conditions? Okay,
That's acceptable. Then I think we would need Josh to amend his motion.
I make a motion to amend my previous motion to add the condition. Do I have to read all of them or just following the completion of construction?
Probably to delete 5 and to add the new 5 and read the new language of 5.
Well, 3 was changed also.
Oh, 3 was changed. You're right.
Should I redo the whole thing?
I would just read them as is. I think that would suffice.
Just read, right, 3, replace former condition 3 with the new condition 3. So just read that one and then add a new condition 5. Condition 6 remains as was former condition 5. So just read 3 and 5. You amended to add the new.
I amended to add the modifications to clause 3. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall conduct an analysis and submit a pre-construction radio frequency compliance assessment for the proposed new and relocated antennas. And the addition of clause 5, Following the completion of construction, the applicant shall conduct an analysis and submit a post-construction radio frequency compliance assessment for the new and relocated antenna. And the former 5 clause is now reading 6, and so forth.
Second.
Thank you, everybody, for all of that. So we have a motion and a second, an amended motion and a second. Any further discussion? A quick look. I don't see any hands. Okay, I will take a roll call vote. Kate.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you. And then because the original application was advertised for a hearing for a special permit, we'll need to close this special permit application without taking any action on.
So I move that the planning board.
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, where is?
Don't mean to interrupt. We actually have to have the applicant request to
Oh.
withdraw that application, and then the board accept that withdrawal.
We so request.
I move that the planning board grant leave to Cellco Partnership DBA Verizon Wireless to withdraw its wireless communication overlay district WCOD special permit application and close the public hearing for said application.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Chris.
Aye.
Phil.
Aye.
Josh.
Aye.
Kate.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck.
Okay, what?
I'm
is
sorry,
the
do you have
next-
to close that hearing? I know you withdrew the application, but do you need to close it?
I believe that motion withdrew it.
Was
and
the
closed
close?
it at
All right,
the same
sorry.
time.
It was, yeah, no, always good to ask, but the motion included both, so I think we're good. Next up, it looks like 290, 294, and 298 Summer Street.
Yes, so this is an application for another modification. The board approved a earth material movement EIDR approval back in October of 2021. And since that time, as the applicant is closer to building the new homes, there have been changes to the footprint and the site layout of one of the homes. And so that requires a request for a modification of the earth material movement approval. There's not just a difference in the actual layout, but there's actually, we determined that there was an error in the previous earth material movement EIDR approval where the decision noted a much lesser amount of earth removal than is actually needed. So while the modification only increases the volume of fill to be moved onto or off of the site by a slight amount, it's significantly larger than the original decision was written. So there was must have been a typographical error in that decision from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I don't know, is there anyone in the audience to represent this application? So Drew, I will bring you over as a panelist. All right,
Can you hear me?
yes.
All right. Thank you for having me. My name is Drew Houghton, working for Legacy Engineering. Business address at 730 Main Street, Suite 2C in Millis. And I am here on behalf of the applicant in regards to the EMM modification. And I am filling in for Dan today. Do I have screen share permissions?
You do.
Okay. Is this visible?
Yes, it is.
So a quick recap on the previously approved submission. The applicant proposed 2 new single-family dwellings at 298 and 290 Summer Street. And we are seeking a modification for the 290 Summer Street house. The 298 Summer Street is remaining exactly the same as it was in the previous submission. So shown on the left is the original approved submission. As a dwelling, a pool, a driveway, and some stormwater facilities. The modified plan is shown on the right, and it shows a smaller house a modified pool layout. And other than that, it's very similar. It's got the same limit of work, driveways in the same place, same size. It's got the same stormwater infiltration fields. And overall, there is a decrease in impervious surface by about 600 square feet, but there is also an increase in fill volume by about 400 cubic yards. And that's really about it. Are there any questions?
Thank you for running through all of that with us. Yeah, any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none. Nora, were there any staff comments that we should discuss?
Yes, I will show you the staff comments. So the majority of the staff comments are here on the screen. If you can see those, it was really just a question between me and the applicant to determine exactly what it was they were proposing. So the original application that was approved showed 960 cubic yards of fill. And what's proposed now is 3,950 cubic yards of fill. So it's a much larger number, but it's not all that different than what was originally proposed. It's a difference of, here it says it increases the net fill by 400 cubic yards. The original one was supposed to have said that it was 3,550, and now it's going up to 3,900. Again, we have a public safety comment. We foresee no public safety impact from the proposed construction. And from conservation, we have any changes to the plan approved under order of conditions DEP number 3380721 requires a minor modification from the Conservation Commission. So once the board grants this approval, the applicant can then apply to the Conservation Commission for a similar modification.
Thank you. Did that spur any comments from any board members or no?
All right, so
None.
then let me share the screen again. So here are the draft motions. Again, the board is asked to find that this is a minor modification.
So I move that, oh, go ahead.
I move that the planning board find the proposed modifications to the earth materials movement, environmental impact and design review approval for the 290, 294, 298 Summer Street to be minor in nature.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion carries.
And then we have a motion for approval of the modification. For sake of clarity, we've repeated the conditions that are in the original application to make sure that they're carried forward into the.
And do we need to read the conditions, Nora, or can we say with the original conditions remaining? Because that determines if I'm going to read it or not. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, okay. So
I could be your backup if you need one.
let me just look quickly. I don't think any of the conditions are different. You know what? I think you better read it again just in case some of them are different, because I think some of your standard conditions may have changed over the last 2 years. So I think it would be best to read these new conditions.
okay, I move that the planning board grant the proposed modifications to the earth material movement, environmental impact and design review EMM-EIDR approval for 290, 294, 298 Summer Street as described in the application, therefore submitted to the planning board and filed in the office of the town clerk on April 18th, 2022, subject to the following conditions. 1, except as modified by the conditions and findings hereof, the project shall comply with the project plans and with the conditions of all prior approvals in all respects, and the applicant shall pursue completion of the project with reasonable diligence and continuity. 2, if the project or any condition imposed in this decision requires permit, license, or other approval from any board or commission, including the Westwood Conservation Commission, Westwood Zoning Board of Appeals, Westwood Select Board, or any agency of the town of Westwood, or other regulatory agency of the Commonwealth of the federal government, the applicant shall make an appropriate application for the same. If any condition of such permit, license, or other approval from any other board, committee, or agency is inconsistent with this decision, the applicant shall make application to the planning board for an amendment of this decision, and the planning board shall consider such application in accordance with the requirements of MGL Chapter 40A, Section 9, or subsection 9, whichever that is, and all applicable planning board rules and regulations. 3, the applicant shall submit a final revised plan set, including civil site plans and architectural design plans, revised to incorporate all approved modifications in PDF format. Said plan set shall be submitted to the town planner for the planning board's file. Thank you. 4, any alterations, modifications, deletions, or changes to the EMM-EIDR approval shall be requested in writing to the town planner and building commissioner prior to implementation. Proposed alterations which are considered de minimis by the building commissioner may be accepted as a note to the file. Proposed alterations which are considered minor by the building commissioner pursuant to section 7.3 of the zoning bylaw shall be considered through the filing of an administrative EMM-EIDR application pursuant to section 7.3.6 of the zoning bylaw, or through the filing of an application of minor modification of EMM-EIDR approval for review by the planning board at a publicly posted planning board meeting. Proposed alterations which are determined to be major by the building commissioner or by the planning board shall be considered by the planning board as a formal amendment to the EMM-EIDR approval and will require a new public hearing hearing before the planning board. 5, the existing pavement on Summer Street shall be protected from damage from loading and unloading of material and or equipment related to the proposed construction. 6, all trucks carrying earth material to or from 290, 294, 298 Summer Street shall be required to access Summer Street from eastbound or westbound High Street and shall proceed directly to the site. No trucks associated with the project shall be permitted to travel on any other non-arterial road in Westwood. 7, any trucks delivering or removing materials shall be covered as to prevent said material from spilling onto the public roadway, and any spilled material shall be cleaned from Summer Street, High Street, and any other roadways traveled in the transport of earth material to and from the site. 8, there shall be no substandard or hazardous fill material used with this project. Prior to the import of any earth material, the applicant shall submit certification to the town planner and building commissioner from the company providing said material, stating that the material does not contain any hazardous material. Thank you. 9, all project-related construction activities, including any ledge removal, tree removal, and all earth material movement, shall comply with the timeframe set forth in the town's general bylaws, Chapter 292, for noise and construction, which allows such work Monday through Saturday between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., and Sunday between the hours of 12 p.m. and 7 p.m. 10, the applicant shall promptly repair any damage with the applicant or its agents cause. Sorry, my dog is about to start barking a lot. Could somebody pick up 10? Thank you.
I'll pick up. The applicant shall promptly repair any damage which the applicant or its agents cause to sidewalks, street pavements, signs, or other fixtures or features within the public right of way after first obtaining permission from the town Department of Public Works. Such repairs shall be performed to Town of Westwood standards. Number 11, all landscaping approved herein shall be installed at the earliest possible date, except that if plantings cannot be installed prior to November 15, 2023, they shall be installed between April 15, 2024 and June 15, 2024. Any plantings that do not survive shall be replaced in kind in perpetuity. 12, a copy of this decision and the project plan shall be kept on the project site at all times during construction. 13, this EMM-EIDR approval shall lapse if a substantial use thereof or construction thereunder has not begun except for good cause within 2 years following the grant thereof. The planning board may extend such approval for good cause upon the written request of the applicant. In the case of this EMM-EIDR approval, the term substantial use thereof or construction thereunder shall mean the commencement and substantial continued progress of the approved activity.
Second.
Thank you for the teamwork there. Motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, I will take a roll call vote. Josh,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So this was not a public hearing, so you're all set. And we can now move on to the next item on your agenda, which is consideration of a modification of the release of a tripartite agreement for the homes at 45 open space residential development. And we have Dan Green here to talk to you about that. So the board may recall that at a previous meeting in March, the board granted a release of the tripartite agreement for the homes at 45, and they allowed for a release of the tripartite, and in return, the receipt of a passbook savings account in the amount of $15,000. However, I think as Dan can explain, he tried to get a passbook account and was unable to. So want to take it from there, Dan?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So unfortunately, the closest passbook account I could find was in the Philippines. They've gone out, and about 10 years ago, nobody does them anymore. So that was my mistake for suggesting them, and I apologize for that. And we've written a check for $15,000 to the town of Westwood, and a check is good for 3 months, I think, or is it 6 months? 6 months. I think it's 6 months. So we're well within that time frame if you need to cash it to use it. And we are working with Nora, and my understanding is there's a new town planner now whom I haven't met.
Elijah, right here, Dan.
Nice to meet you.
And Elijah, okay, thank you. And I'm very happy to meet with you at the site, or Nora, you said you might be able to get a tour in later this week.
Yes,
And-
we're shooting for Thursday.
The biggest thing, we have two things. One is we'd love to finish it up. The last home closed in January, and our bank is asking, why do we still have this tripartite agreement in place? So we had talked about reducing it, but now we just need your vote so that you can accept the check if that's okay with you. So, and then we'll do the work as soon as we know what we need to do once everybody's had a look to it. Nora made a couple of suggestions that she thought would help, and I'm quite amenable to it. Nora, I don't know if you have the ability to pull up an email I just sent you that shows a picture of 41, because you suggested planting some quick grow evergreens
I
behind
did.
41.
So I think that the board at the last time they actually made a decision on the landscape plan itself, they approved the development subject to the town planner and
Yeah.
the tree warden approving that final landscape. So I think the
Okay.
board has passed that off. I don't think they need to discuss the details of that tonight.
Perfect.
So I think it's really just a question of whether the board would accept a check in place of a passbook savings account. Town council Pat Ahern was fine with that. He actually physically received the check, and it's now in the treasurer's office being held. But we can't move forward unless the board finds that acceptable.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, comments, or concerns from board members?
Actually, just a procedural thing for me, Nora. My in-laws actually live in this development. Is it okay if I vote on this?
It's probably best if you abstain.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask if he liked them.
I think he's abstained, so he can't say.
They're fantastic.
Thank you, Josh.
Nora, can I just ask, is the check being held or deposited, or what is the status that we're voting upon?
So the check is currently being held and not deposited, and the intention would be to return the uncashed check to Dan upon the approval of the final landscaping plan. I suspect that there'll be a couple of additional plantings that have to be added to get that final landscape plan approved. But Elijah and Karen Skinner-Petroni are the ones who have to make that decision. So they have to get out there and actually look at the site. So we'll know I would say we'll know by the end of the week if there are additional plants required, and then Dan will get an estimate for what they cost and eventually purchase them and install them. And if it's getting close to the 6-month time frame, which I can't imagine it would, we would cash the check and hold the funds. But we're trying to avoid having to cash the check. We'd rather just give it back.
That fully answers my question. The idea is to simply hold the physical check, get everything done, and return.
Yes. Yes, that would be the
that
intention.
answers my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I did not know that passbook savings accounts were out of fashion. So I learned something today as well. I personally don't have a problem with that, given that it sounds like the option that we had originally agreed to just isn't an option. This seems like a fair and equitable way to move forward. I don't have any concerns. Any other board members have comments?
I echo that. I think it's fine.
I have no problem with it.
No, me either.
Right, well, if we're all in agreement, if someone would like to make the motion.
I'll step up. I hereby move that the planning board accept the proposed release of the tripartite agreement between the Westwood Planning Board, Westwood Green LLC, and Cape Cod 5-cent Savings Bank, which agreement was entered by all parties to secure a completion of the work associated with the roadways and installation of utilities for the full project, including all phases of construction for the planning board's open space residential development, OSRD special permit as shown on plans entitled Site Plan 45 Clapboard Tree Street, OSRD zoning 45 Clapboard Street, Westwood, Mass. Prepared by VHB for the Green Company, dated February 5, 2019, and revised through April 17, 2019. And for the 2 units added in accordance with the special permit decision recorded on April 22, 2021, in Book 39302, page 363, pursuant to the construction cost schedule from Beta Group, dated June 8, 2021. The proposed release is intended to reduce the amount of surety from $326,000 to $15,000. The $15,000 would be in the form of a check submitted to Town Council prior to the release of the tripartite agreement. Remaining funds are intended to secure potential additional landscape requirements pursuant to conditions numbers 3 and number 4 of the board's October 25, 2022 decision modifying the OSRD special permit, which decision was filed in the office of the town clerk on December 3, 2022. If all landscaping requirements of the OSRD project approval are not fully complete and approved before September 30, 2023, the town will cash the check and use the funds to undertake the remaining landscape work or cause said landscape work to be completed by others.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Josh?
Abstain.
Kate?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So
Thank
Dan,
you.
we will get you a letter telling you and your bank that the tripartite can be released since we have the check in hand.
Fantastic. And is that a
Alright.
legal letter you want from me, or I'll wait to get your email?
We will send a letter to you, just formalizing the board's motion tonight, and then you take that to your bank.
Fantastic.
Okay?
Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing after your walk so we can get those plants in
Alright.
the ground.
Thank you.
And everyone.
Thank
Good night.
you. Good night.
All right, so now we're at the point in the meeting where we go back to your reorganization, and we can go through the committee and subcommittee assignments. So I can, probably easiest if I show the screens to remind you of who did what last year, and then you can determine who would like to volunteer for these positions this year. So the first position is the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. The current representative is alternate planning board member Steve Ullinoff. And I believe Steve is hopeful of being recommended for this position again. But if someone else would prefer to request their nomination, these are all appointments that are made by the select board. So the planning board nominates people for the select board to approve. I believe the Metropolitan Area Planning Councils is something that Steve has been a member of for well over a decade. Possibly
I've
over
talked
two.
to I talked to Steve because the alternate, and I know he's also eager, and I would support him continuing.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't have you down there as the alternate. Let me add that.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed. I think unless, someone else is really very, very interested, I think Steve does a great job on that, and he's always able to attend, and I think it works out well for everybody to have him continue on. So I would support him as well.
This
And we
is
can
a
take a
little,
vote at the end, all together after you have all the appointments. So
Okay.
we'll just fill it out to start with. And then for the alternate, Bill, are you interested in continuing, or would someone else like to? Fill out.
I'm interested in continuing unless someone else is interested.
Okay, moving on to the housing partnership. Chris Paff is the current representative and Kate Wynn is the current alternate.
I'd be happy to stay on.
I'd support Chris staying on.
I would
Agree,
as
and
well.
I'm happy to be the alternate as well.
MBTA Advisory Board designee is currently Steve Ullinoff. Once again, Steve would like to continue doing this.
He didn't mention this to me when I had talked to him, but I would assume he's still interested.
Regional Transportation Advisory Council, Bill, you are the current representative. Are you looking to keep that, or?
Yep,
pass it on?
I'm interested in staying.
Three Rivers Interlocal Council, that's Trick. Josh, you're the current representative, and Chris, you're the alternate.
I'd be happy to stay as alternate. If
Yeah.
Josh wants to stay.
And
I'd
Josh,
be happy to stay on, but if Ellen was interested in swapping WEAC, I'd also be interested in that.
If you'd like to, I think they'd benefit from your experience. There is work to be done, so I'd love to be on the periphery still, because I've started some of it, but I'm happy to swap with you if you'd like to do something different for the next year.
When's WEAC meeting usually now?
They usually meet Thursdays. Like I think that there's a meeting this week, the 18th, and they have started meeting in person. They were accommodating a couple of times when I just couldn't physically get there. Sometimes they still meet remotely, but they tend to start at like 7:30. So it's a later start time if that is better or worse for you.
And how often?
Like once a month. It's not a lot of meetings.
Okay, yeah, let's try that. If that works
Sounds
for you.
good to me. And if it doesn't work for you as we move forward, you and I can talk about it and figure it out.
Okay.
and Chris is the proposed alternate, or is the current alternate for Trick?
For Trick, yeah, I'd be happy to stay
Stay
on.
on?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the final one is the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Committee. I believe they're changing their name to the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee. And,
Yeah, I'm happy to stay on.
wow, not many changes this year.
The board's the same.
But that's true. good board, so I'm glad to see you continue. All right, would someone like to make a motion to recommend this slate of representatives and alternates to the select board?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. Chris,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you. Next, you have your draft minutes. You have 4 sets of minutes that were put in your packet this time for March 7th, March 21st, March 28th, and April 11th.
Did folks have a chance to look at those? I went through them. I didn't see anything jumping out at me, but did anyone else have any comments, addendums?
I didn't see anything. I thought they looked fine.
Yeah, no edits.
Yeah. No edits from me.
Would you like to make a single motion for all 4 or do them individually? If anyone needs to abstain from any of the.
I need to abstain from the 28th, the one with FinCom.
That's someone else. Sorry, who else wasn't with the at the FinCom meeting?
Josh was the only one. Everyone else was there, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Right.
That's what I have in my notes, at least.
I think you're right. I think I'm thinking of the February one instead.
So do we have to do this individually then?
So you could do one motion for March 7th, March 21st, and April 11th, and a separate motion for March 28th.
So I move that we approve the minutes for the March 27, March 21, and April 11 planning board meetings as written.
Second.
Sorry, did you say March 27th?
I think yeah, you did. I think it's
Oh,
March
sorry,
7th.
March 7th,
March
March
7th.
21st, and April 11th.
There you go.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote. Phil,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
And would someone else like to make a motion for the March 28th meeting? Anyone other than Josh?
I move that the March 28th minutes be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Nope, seeing none. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Josh,
Abstain.
Phil,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is updates from any agency or committee representatives. I don't know if there's anyone whose committee or board met over the last month.
Nora, can you share the new addition for the housing?
Yes, actually, let me let Elijah do that. Do you want to introduce? I know Amanda isn't on the meeting, but Elijah can give you an introduction.
Certainly, yes. So Amanda wasn't able to join us this evening. However, we have a new housing and land use planner, Amanda Wolf. She started in the beginning of May, and she comes to Westwood from New Life Furniture Bank of Massachusetts and the Betsy Wilson Homes. She has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in sociology from Roanoke College and will be graduating in August with a Master of City Planning degree with a certificate in applied sustainability from Boston University. And very happy to join the team and give Nora some much needed relief.
And it is great to have both Elijah and Amanda on board. So
Nora, you're
great.
going to be bored. You're not going to have anything to do.
I still have enough, believe me. All right. And then the next item, general miscellaneous updates and administrative items.
Actually, Nora,
Yes.
one thing for Trick that was discussed sort of ad nauseum today is accessory dwelling units. I guess it's been taken up by a lot of different organizations in terms of like sort of that slow sort of increase in population where you're having like affordable in-law apartments on your primary property. You know, there's both pros and cons. I don't know where you fall on that spectrum, Nora, in terms of perspective. You know, I think a lot of our constituents would be anxious about that, especially given a lot of the other rentals. Although there's plenty of ways to work around that. But I think one of the most poignant parts of the discussion was really around these accessory dwelling units are occurring either way, whether legal or illegal. And at least if you put some confines on it and create a path for legal accessory dwellings, you could actually have some more control, especially with fire and life safety and code compliance and stuff like that. So, yeah.
So we have, it's not an agenda item, so I won't get into details, just respond to the report that you have. We have accessory apartments now allowed as a special permit through our zoning board of appeals, and about, I think the initial approval was back in the 1970s, late 70s, where the zoning bylaw was amended to allow up to 1% of single and two family homes. That would be the number, cap the number of accessory dwelling units. And about, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, there was an amendment to increase that to 2% of all single and two family homes. So that gets us to, I believe we have 5,800 units, and of those, just over 5,000 are single family homes and two family homes. So that gets us to almost 100 accessory apartments right now. And I think we have issued special permits for 60 some odd number of units. It took us 35 years to get the first 50. And we've over the last, I'd say 6 or 7 years, we've probably added 16 or 17 more. So I think what I would recommend we do is watch that closely and see if we get closer to that cap. The board may want to do something different.
Yes, some other towns were actually just allowing it by right, as long as it was within special confines, like it's a caretaker or direct family member, things like that. So.
And it is discussed a little bit in our housing production plan. So it's something
Nora,
to look at.
Two of the discussion points I remember about that was, one, the argument to increase it to 2% was to allow those illegal existing to come forward and make themselves legal. And we were approaching the 1% number, and so we weren't going to have any left.
Right.
And then there was another point I can't recall exactly. Oh, we had talked about how the Attorney General's office, I think it was the AG's office, had indicated that it was not something that could be constrained to just family members, that it couldn't be regarded as simply in-law or family members, but simply an accessory dwelling.
Right. That's the advice that we've received. There have been other communities that have done that, and I guess have not been challenged yet, but we did receive advice. So I don't want to get into too deep a discussion on this just because it's not a listed agenda item. I do want to point out, though, that Amanda was on our meeting all along, and we just couldn't see her for some reason. So here, introduce the planning board members. This is actually Amanda Wolf in person. Amanda's our new housing and land use.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not sure how I joined, but I've been on the whole time, and so I don't know. But glad I could be here.
Very glad to have you.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, welcome.
Nice to meet you, Amanda.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Any other updates that anyone would like to give from one of your committees? If not, we'll move on to the general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. One item that has come up over the last couple of days, we have a peer review request for quotes that went out for 2 new applications. One is for 190 Washington Street, which is a proposed EIDR approval for a new redevelopment of a commercial structure there, the former Patterson and Eastern Insurance building. at 190 Washington Street, kind of across from St. Denis Church. There's a proposal for that building to be renovated and expanded slightly to accommodate a hair salon on the first floor and office space on the second floor. So that application will be coming to you in June, and we sent out a request for quotes for peer review. We received one response from PSC, Tom Houston, for that. So since it's the only response we received, Elijah will provide a contract to Tom for that application. And then we also sent out a request for quotes for 22 Everett Street. That is the Petruzziello application for the Mumford District on Everett Street. And that also is scheduled for hearing on June 6th. And again, we received one proposal, and that was from Tom Houston. So I think of both of those applications, we're awarding the contract to Tom. So the board does not need to take any action there. I just wanted to inform you of that so you're aware. I think Josh has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering, so I think obviously Tumble Bus will trigger that 5,000 sustainability threshold that just passed. But how about that other development?
The other development is well under 5,000 square feet.
Awesome. Just curious.
All right, and then the last item on your agenda is discussion regarding mail that was received by planning board members over the last month or so. So there was I call it an unfortunate incident where all of the planning board members received an item in the mail, a card containing play money and some comments that were disparaging to both the planning board members and to a local developer. Is there anything anyone wanted to comment on that?
I just wanted to say that I encourage and welcome residents and non-residents alike to share feedback, concerns, comments with us. And I understand people have those concerns and comments, but I would prefer moving forward that people share the kind of comments and concerns that they articulated in this piece of mail in a forum such as this, rather than in an anonymous piece of mail to my home. I don't find that to be the most productive way, because then we can't really engage in a dialogue, particularly when it's a disparaging piece of mail accusing me of wrongdoing. I would like to have the opportunity to address that to and with the person who has that concern. So I would just encourage everybody, please come to us with your concerns and your comments, because we would love to hear them and we would love to discuss them with you and be able to have a dialogue, because that is productive and that is appropriate. That's all I wanted to say on the subject.
Yeah, I guess just to build on that, like, you know, this is a volunteer thing for all of us. We work really hard to try to make our town better. It's disappointing that somebody wouldn't come to us either in this forum or, I mean, I know I'll speak for myself. I'm more than happy to speak to anyone off the record, like individually. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. If there's people with concerns, you know, I'm available. But receiving mail like that, to me, borders on even threatening. You know, it's my house. I don't need to receive mail like that. So, you know, I would ask people if they have concerns, they have thoughts, that they reach out in a productive way and we can talk about it.
I will just merely echo it and say no more, because my colleagues on the board are very restrained, but I did not find it to be a pleasant piece of mail to be received at my home.
All right, if there's nothing else to be said on that, then I think before you adjourn, I'd just like to remind you all that you have a meeting on May 22nd. So that is next Monday. And it's an in-person meeting at the Norwood Senior Center. It's a simultaneous public hearing between the Planning Board, Westwood Planning Board, and the Norwood Planning Board to consider an expansion of the Mercedes facility that crosses the border between the two towns. So just a reminder to everyone, and we will send you an email so you remember again on Monday that we're meeting in person in Norwood. Kind of an unusual circumstance. Anyone who wants to follow along who cannot attend that meeting, it will be streamed on the Norwood cable channel. And there's also, if you look at our calendar section, there's a link where you can join the meeting remotely. And then our Westwood Media Center will broadcast it after the fact. They'll pick up a copy of the recording from Norwood.
What time was that again? Sorry.
It is 7 p.m. on Monday, May 22nd.
Are we going to get any materials in advance of that?
That was my question.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
So there's a meeting packet. I believe it's already populated, but I'll have to double check that. I think the materials are already in the meeting packet. If you go to the calendar, if there's anything not there, we'll make sure it's in there tomorrow.
And
So
are
if
we
you
gonna
go
get
to-
matching shirts ahead of that?
We did not. I know you
Can-
asked that last time.
Can we agree on green? Phil set us up nicely.
I agree.
The Norwood Planning Board is very happy to have you joining them. Elijah and I met with their staff and with the applicant for a staff review of the application in advance of that meeting. So it's a great opportunity to meet your fellow, your neighboring planning board members and make it a lot easier for the applicant to go to one meeting for 2 approvals.
How many members do they have?
I'm not sure. Amanda, do you happen to know? No, I don't know. I don't know how many members they have.
Okay.
I think it's at least 5. It might be more.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's nothing else.
Yes, we would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on adjournment?
Can I just
Seeing
say
none.
that Ellen's first night and we're done at 8:28?
Yes, well played.
A new record.
Chris, I think
No
he would have
slight
gotten it by this time. Chris would have gotten it by 8:20.
Yes. And thank you to all of you for being patient with me trying to drive the bus for the first time at this meeting. So thank you all. We have a motion and a second. 5 in Norwood Planning Board with 1 associate member, it looks like. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Great. I will take a roll call vote. Phil, Chris,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
you.
Have a
Well
good
done.
night.
Good job. Good
Have a
night.
night.
Thank you.